Good morning and welcome to Saturday special of Dr. Lamba's Awakening Code. When we talk of Nyaya Sūtras, what are they? Basically, Nyaya Sutra is the fountainhead of the Nyaya school of Hindu philosophy. Nyaya is justice, but it's much more than justice. It is the ancient Indian jurisprudence in Sanskrit, and it's an amazing school of logic and philosophy. As a matter of fact, the whole Indian system is based on the combination of two schools of philosophy. One is the Aristotelian school, and the other is the Persian school. Those two schools of logic are, in fact, the model for the Indian system of logic, jurisprudence, and so on. And Nyaya Sutra is composed by Akṣapāda Gautama and is a foundational text of the Hindu philosophy, of the, shall I call the Indian philosophy? I don't want to give it a religious name. What are sutras? That's the first question. Sutra in Indian literary tradition referred to an aphorism or a collection of aphorisms in the form of a manual or more broadly in a condensed manual or text. Sutras are a genre of ancient and medieval Indian text, and they're found in Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and so on. Now, when I received this message from a few friends who wanted me to talk about the Nyaya school of Hindu philosophy, let me be very clear. It's a very ancient system. But the date when the text was composed and the biography of the author is not known, though it's attributed to Akṣapāda Gautama. It was written about 6th century before Christ. And as a matter of fact, the text is likely to be composed by more than one author over a period of time. Maybe it took half a century or maybe more than that. There are 5 books with 2 chapters in each book. That's it. So there are total 10 chapters. And the total of aphorism sutras is 528. That's it. The total cumulative aphorisms are 528, and they are the rules of logic, epistemology, and metaphysics. We talk of metaphysics in this age, but imagine 6 centuries before Christ. Now it focuses on knowledge and on logic. And mind you, the sutras have nothing whatsoever to do with the Vedic rituals. The first book of Nyaya Sutra is structured as a general introduction. There are 16 categories of knowledge. Book 2 is about Pramana, epistemology. Book 3 is about the object of knowledge. What should be the object of knowledge? Just amassing knowledge or using it for the people? And that text discusses the nature of knowledge in remaining books. It is the foundation of Nyaya's tradition that the empirical theory of validity and the truth, opposing uncritical appeals to intuition, are scriptural authority. As a matter of fact, Nyaya Sutras very clearly say that scriptural authority is not to be quoted as far as logic is concerned. We are in the habit of saying, for example, the Sikhs would all say, in Gurbani it's said. Hindus would always say, so and so mantra is that. Christians would say, Bible. No. According to Nyaya Sutra, a reference to any religious book defies logic, it kills logic, because you cannot question the religious quotes. They are likely to be hurtful, and people have blind faith in them. So when you're talking of logic, keep away from the religious scriptures. That's the first part. Unfortunately, it has been observed more often in breach. And when the Chief Justice of India, a few days back, he was inaugurating for the first time in India the Nyaya School of Philosophy in National University of Law, and he said that he wishes that the Indian jurisprudence was, say, based on Nyaya Sutra rather than on Code Napoleon. So Nyaya Sutra is attributed, as I said, to Brahma, but according to Potter, this was a common name. And this can be anybody, or it can be a collection of a dozen people who wrote it. One is said, as a matter of fact, sum up the situation produced by saying that let's take it. There's a edited version, edited by the scholars of that time. Nyaya and the science of reason, basically, logic, reason. And they say that Nyaya, the concept of justice, devoid of logic, has no meaning. It stretches back into pre-Vedic era. It developed in the ancient Indian tradition. And that Indian tradition involved dialectical tourism and dialectical discussions in the halls of kings and the schools of Vedic philosophers. Basically, Gautama and his cohorts disliked this systematized discussion, and they said that the king's court are no place for intellectual discussion because some of the people would be ready to say anything to please the king, to win his approval. And that goes against the logic. The way you should not quote scriptures, as they say, the devil quotes the scriptures for his benefit. Similarly, you should not do anything or say anything to curry favor. The moment you do it, then it's not logic. Now, this Nyaya school of Hinduism influenced all other schools of Hindu philosophy and Buddhism. As a matter of fact, the Tibetan records show that the Buddhist scholars spent years residing with the Hindu Nyaya scholars to master these logics, these basics of reasoning, and the cooperation enables the scholar to place the surviving version of Nyaya Sutra to about 2nd century BC. From 6th century BC to the 2nd century BC, 400 years it took to complete it. Now, what it is, what's the structure? If I look at it, in the book one, the subject matter is the 4 reliable instruments of correct knowledge, definition, and it explains what should be the nature of argument and the nature of proof. What should be the proof? Book second is about the analysis of the opposing views. Don't reject them out of hand. As you don't accept scriptures, similarly, you should neither accept nor condemn the approach of the opponent. Analyze it, present the theory of 5-membered argument. Now, this is a very basic thing which people are now talking about. And the correct conclusions are those whose contradictions do not exist. So you should come to a conclusion which is acceptable. And then, the theory of reasoning methods that are flawed. All reasoning is not proper, they can be flawed. Then again, it presents the theory of doubt. Now, imagine in an era of 6th century before Christ, you are talking of the need of doubt. You cannot take anything for granted. Logic, reasoning, without doubt has no meaning. What I always say, text, examine, then reject or accept. This is doubt. You should not accept anything simply because somebody has said so. Simply because somebody has said so is no proof of its validity. So the theory of doubt, possibly again for the first time in the history of mankind, somebody talked of the need to doubt. And it discusses perceptions, the need of comparison, and rejecting the unreliable. The theory that reliability of testimony depends on reliability of the source. So simply because somebody comes and says, I heard it, no, a proof has to be given. And the theory that the testimony of the Vedas are a source of knowledge was also rejected. The best way to understand Vedas, as per the Nyāya Sūtra, is to study the text, understand the Vedas, divide it into three injunctions: description and re-inculcation. So basically, don't accept Vedas or Gurbani or anything, or Bible, or even Talmuds, nothing. Everything has to be examined. Then the next thing in the Nyaya Sutra is the instruments of knowledge. They say there are four knowledges. Confusion is caused by the presumption. We always presume things, and our presumptions color our judgments. So you have got to understand the basic instruments of knowledge. Then there's theory of sensory organs. Your perceptions would be influenced by your sensory organs. Should you accept it? No. Then it presents the theory of soul and the essence of a person and the source of judgment. Simply because the person has made a statement, has written something, is no proof. You have got to go into the genetics of the person, his capabilities, his interest, whether it's himself interested. Now, here comes something great. As Plato said in his Republic, that kings should have no family, because then if they have family, they'll be corrupt. And if they have no family, they'll have no reason to be corrupt. The same is about everybody in a life. Somebody comes and makes a statement. Does it serve his personal interest or the interest of a person or a body in whom he is interested, direct or indirect? So the theory of the soul is clarifying the interest of the person. Then the theory of defects. Everything has a cause and a consequence. So you have to find out the sequential order, then present correct knowledge so as to be devoid of all defects and errors. Establishment of external world exists. Phenomena are real as objects. So refute everything is false theory. Present ways to produce and maintain correct knowledge. Then the last thing is how to lose an argument. There are 22 ways of losing an argument. And let me tell you, when I read that, it was an eye opener. The sort of reasoning, the logic, and the pragmatic approach. When you lose an agreement, you are not to fight and you are not to be happy. When you win an agreement, you are not happy. You are related. Maybe you think again, why did I win it? Has something gone wrong? When you lose it again, why did I lose it? Analyze it, but don't feel dejected, sorrowful. So the content is extremely valid even in today. And there are 16 categories of knowledge, as I said. Imagine, perfection is attained by the correct knowledge of the 16 categories. And that is, first is knowledge, then is doubt, then is the purpose, then is the familiar instances, established principles, members of an inference, the deductions, reasoning, ascertainment of results, discussion, and sophisticated deputations. Then comes fallacies, quibbles, useless rejoinders, as the advocates do in the courts, and the method of losing an argument. This is the base of Nyaya Sūtra. Now, then it comes to how to attain valid knowledge. Knowledge is fine, but how to obtain it? The most important is perception. That's the first thing. Then is inference, deduction. You don't simply accept it. First is basically, as I said, you have to perceive things, perceive them in epistemological context, societal context, and in the personal context. After the perception, you've got to infer, deduction, logic. Then you have to compare it and find out analogies, upasana. And then the testimony and the reliable sources. Shabda, the Sanskrit word for the word, is the most important thing, and that has to be seen. Then what's the theory of the proper argument? Now, this would be of interest to the advocates and the judges. First is the proposition or hypothesis, what needs to be proved. Second is hetu, the reason why it should be there. Then udharana, the general rule, what happens other ways. Then upanyaya, the application of the rule. And then nigmana, the conclusion. So, for example of what shall be an example of a proper argument that is in the book 3, I think they have written. First is suppose there's a fire on the hill. How do you know it? There's a fire on the hill because there's smoke on the hill. Whenever there's smoke, there's fire. The hill is smoky, therefore there's a fire in the hill. So complete deduction, not that somebody saw it. Then the theory of doubt as incomplete knowledge. No knowledge is ever complete. That is the base of Nyaya Shastra. It always needs further addition. It always needs knowledge. And the moment you are perfect, you are gone, you are dead. You have always got to learn. The theory of doubt, according to Nyāya Sūtras, starts with a premise that doubt is a part of human learning process and occurs when conflicting possibilities exist with regard to the recognized object. And now, mind you, doubt is neither error nor absence of knowledge. It is a form of uncertainty, and it is basically weighing up the possibilities and probabilities. It's not just error. You don't think it's wrong. No, I think it could be the other way. So it's a human struggle with the probabilities. It's a knowledge that is possibly partially valid, but needs some inputs. Then comes very important part, which is the theory of errors. In no other philosophy, I studied Kant, Hegel, Aristotle, Plato, practically all the philosophies. But I found that only this Nyaya Sutra has got Hetva Bhasha, the theory of errors. That it is stated very clearly that error is always in the process of thought itself. And the subjective self clothes the thought. It's the duty of the knowledge seeker to test the validity of his knowledge, both in the assumptions and in the experience. But neither the object of knowledge nor the knowledge itself is responsible for errors. So error is because of your understanding, not because of your knowledge. Then there's another very interesting theory. I'm just telling you what it is, because going deep into that would take me at least one complete semester for a college. Theory of causality is important because causal relations, what they call in Sanskrit Karan, book 4 mentions that everything happens because of a reason, A, and every action has a consequence. So there's a causal connection with your punishment and your action. And according to Fowler, another scientist, social scientist, he says, this is for the first time in the history that the antecedents of the effects invariably and unconditionally were studied. And there are three types of causes. There can be inherent causes, there can be non-inherent causes, and there can be efficient causes. And these arise from drava, the substance of the argument, guna, and karma. So drav, gun, quality, and karma, action. Then there's a very interesting thing. There's a negativity theory. Nowadays, psychologists are always saying positivity and negativity that become the buzzwords. For the first time again in a written form, I found the Nyaya Sūtras have shown the seeds of the theory of negative entities, where both being and non-being, presence and absence of something is considered correct and useful. Absence of a book on the table, absence of a particular color in a painting has a place in the process of thinking. And in addition to positive verifiable characteristics of the table and the painting. So even if something is missing, there is a logic for that, and that has to be studied. Then, it talks of the God, and it creates very clearly that the God is non-theistic. Book 4 of Nyaya Sūtras says that the production and destruction of entities, that's life and matter in the universe, is a causal effect of life. And Ishvara exists, and the causal state is because it is just overseeing. So it's not a sort of a creator or a sustainer, but just a sort of an overseer to see that everything is happening. Happening rightly or wrongly, that's not a question. Siddhanta Sutra. Ishvara is Siddhanta Sutra. The principles have to be maintained. So then it talks of the inner freedom. Most important freedom is the inner freedom. There have been a number of commentaries on that. And Nyaya Shastra's influence on Hinduism's concept of soul and Brahmanism's no soul debate is because of Nyaya Sutra. They have been the foundation of the historic debate. Because Buddhism premises there is voidness and anat, no soul. Hinduism says Atma exists. Nyaya Sutras refuse the theory and they say that Atma is your knowledge. Atma is your intellect. You lull it to sleep, there is no Atma, no soul. What is soul after all? It's a constable placed within your body, conscious. So this has been the cause of that. And of course, Vedanta tradition, if you look at it, they are wholly based on Nyaya Sutras, the Hindu philosophy. Maya, Mimamsa, they are synonyms. So over time, Nyaya Sutras, Mimamsa, Vedanta became three distinct separate schools, but they are derived all from Nyaya Sutra. Now, the relevance of Nyaya Sutra today, as I said, if we look at the totality, these Nyaya Sutras are more comprehensive, more detailed, either than Aristotle or Plato's Republic or Socrates. They are more in depth than Kant, Hegel. They are more pertaining to the validity of knowledge. And I was reading Sheikh Sadi saying at one place that Nyaya Sutra should be made a compulsory reading for anybody who wants to understand and comprehend life in all its contradictions. The Nyaya Sutra should, in fact, be a part of studies spread over years because there are, as I said, different books, though there are only 528 sutras, but each one of them can be subject of several dissertations. This is a compendium of knowledge, and I would have no hesitation at placing it at par with Encyclopedia Britannica, if not above that, possibly above that, but by themselves, they are such a exhaustive source of knowledge, understanding, human psychology, philosophy, ethics, and jurisprudence that they cannot be ignored. Thank you.